Hey, good morning, everybody. Christopher here. Good morning, Judah. I have some kids creeping out of their rooms from hibernating. It's 9 a.m. Eastern time, and I am going to let the rest of the world know that we are live for the first time. Do you want to say hi? Say hi. We're going to let the rest of the world know that we're live right now, and that way they can join us too. By the way, I hope that you have a good beverage with you. We're going to get into some good stuff this morning, and I'm going to talk about what I'm drinking here in a second.
Black coffee.
What's that?
Black coffee.
Black coffee. That's right. That's right. Sweet. All right.
Oh, it's the coffee that you got for your birthday.
That is the coffee that I was sent for my birthday, which we're going to talk about in just a second. Who's that?
This is Frank.
Frank? Frank the P?
Mm-hmm.
Is that because he's Frankenstein?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Frankenstein green bean.
Nice. Thanks, Judy. All right. Well, we're going to jump into some stuff this morning that I hope is inspiring to you and helpful to you. And I want to give you the reasons real quick that we're doing this, that I'm doing this. Specifically, number one is that the response I've gotten in social media in the last year, I'd say, has predominantly been around two particular subjects, or themes, you might say. The first is I've gotten a huge response from people just saying that they felt encouraged by things that I've said or shared. And that, in turn, is encouraging to me. I think is really, really cool. And it motivates me to continue to produce things that I hope inspire you. A lot of it is taken from my own weakness and a lot of the trials that I have been through myself. And anyway, trying to continue on that theme to always provide you something that's encouraging and that helps you in the midst of whatever you're in. Could be a funk, could be something you're going through, could be pain. We all have it. We're not immune to that and to the hardships of life. And Gary, good to see you, my man. What's next, LT? I like it. You guys are amazing. Brian, thank you for watching. The other thing that I've gotten a huge amount of questions on specifically are writing tips. And rather than just be connected to writing solely, I'm going to talk about art in general or the creative process. Hopefully that it spreads out and touches a couple more things that are interrelated to those concepts. The other thing is it's Wednesday mornings right now because it's the middle of the week, and I find that that's when I need the boost the most. And anyway, hopefully that helps you in whatever you're going through. So Jamin Sullivan in Australia, Mr. Opal Hunter himself on the Discovery Channel. That is super cool. You're my most famous friend. Nathan Reimer, thank you. You're watching with your second cup of coffee. Awesome. By the way, your coffee is going to, I'm just going to drop a hint for next week's article, that your coffee is going to be sponsored. So if anybody wants to do some hunting, they can do that. But I'll save that for next week. By the way, as I'm going this morning, if there's anything you want to ask, any questions you want to pose, please feel free to. Thanks, Jamin. I appreciate that. By the way, you have something coming in the mail to you, so might take a couple months to get there to Australia. But yeah, it's coming on the way. Nathan, good question. The coffee I'm drinking, I will be talking about in just a moment. So yeah, you'll enjoy it, I think. So the first thing I want to talk about is finding hope amidst desperation, and you saw that in the little leader there. This is something that came up while I was writing and talking last week, and I got a lot of comments about it. It seemed to really resonate with people and what they're going through. And I talked a little bit about where I was a year ago this time in my life, which was a pretty healthy dose of both desperation and hope. And I found that those two things tend to go together. They are strange bedfellows, you might say. They really do have this sense of partnering together in either afflicting our lives or helping us move forward in life. Nicole, good to see you. Christian, good to see you as well. And they are interesting because well, I'll put it this way. I think in life we often find this struggle between what we want to do and what we have to do. And that tension is intense and can be very, very intense, because what we want to do is the thing that's connected to hope and what makes us come alive. It's the thing that we go to bed thinking about and wake up first thing on our mind. It's super exciting. But what we have to do is the thing necessary for survival. For you, that could be paying the bills. That's taking care of obligations, responsibilities. And they don't often align very well if we're in a hard situation. And so we feel torn between the hope of, wow, this is the thing I really want to do one day, and the tension and pain of, but this is what I have to do. And not saying all things that we have to do are bad. In fact, I think most of the things we have to do are really healthy and good. But there are the things that are necessary for survival. And that's what I want to touch on a little bit here this morning. Hold on, I'm taking a sip of coffee that I'll be talking about in a second. So, desperation. If you are in a desperate place this morning, I sympathize and empathize with you. I am not desperate right now. I was definitely desperate a year ago, and I have that smell, if you will, in the air. Hey, Matthew, watching from Czech Republic. I love it. Thanks for tuning in, my man. But desperation is typically, I'll say this, desperation is a legit emotion. It's not inherently bad either. It's definitely a part of our lives, and it's very good in small doses. It's no way to live, but it does have a place in helping us get out of situations that are dangerous to us. For those who are, hey, wow, I love that. Wedem smada. I don't even know how to say that, but that's a great name. But those things for us, when we're desperate, we find that we are making decisions typically based on fear, that we're motivated by a deep, deep need to survive. And the decisions that we end up making tend to be reaction-based rather than anything constructive or thoughtful. Not saying that reaction-based decisions are inherently bad, they're just not the best. And I think that's super, super important to notice. Looking as young as ever. I love you, Jeffrey. You're amazing. Danny, wow. This is a great crew of people watching already. Thank you. Thank you for joining. My name spelt backwards. Wow. Adams Matawa. You're going to have to help me on that, bro. The other thing about making decisions when we are distraught is that those decisions can tend to be decisions that then continue to build upon more bad decisions. So if we're desperate, we might make an impulsive reaction, and then that thing then leads to other situations that compound the tension that we're currently in. And from there, it can get out of control really, really quick. Matthew Adams, thank you for that. I love it. Love your insights. Missed the crap out of you too, Danny. That is so huge. You're amazing. And good morning, Mr. Bliss. Cheers to you. So the opposite of desperation is what I'm going to call hope this morning. And that is what I would consider the deep expectation of future provision. The deep expectation of future provision. In other words, I am anticipating that in some way, shape, or form, my needs will be met. Those could be emotional, financial, those could be relationships and friendship oriented. Those could be where you want to live, what you want to be doing with your life. But it's the distance between what I presently have and what I hope I'll have at some point in the future. Hope tends to be motivated by wonder, I love this, and a sense of purpose. In other words, I wonder what the possibilities could be like in the future for me. And those possibilities have a lot to do with who I am and who I want to be in the world. So in other words, it has this sense of looking forward. Desperation is this survival mentality, whereas hope is, hey, I've got to get out of this thing that I'm in and lean into the thing I want to be doing, or who I really want to become in the future. And I think that's really, really powerful. Decisions when we're in a place of hope are thoughtful, and they often provoke new open doors for what could be. And so just as desperation tends to cause us to react to situations and create things that have a downward spiral, hope allows us to make decisions that beget new opportunities that are also hopeful in and of themselves. Hey, I love this question real quick from Adam, which is, how do I create species names? I'm going to come up with a good answer for you in just a little bit, so stay tuned on that. And yes, Gary, I do know where provision comes from. It's good stuff. So in both cases, we experience these compounding actions, one for tumbling down, you might say, and one for progressive movement upward. And so I want to just close with this section real quick, and then we're going to get into some coffee and to some questions right there about species names and ideas, which I really, really like. Hold on, let me see if I can expand this comment here from you, Adam, because I think it's great. Is it just random combinations until you find the one, right one? Yeah, and so I'm going to get to that question. Great question, Adam, so stay tuned on that. Let's go back up. All right. So here's some real quick tips for those of you who are in the midst of, hey, Ryan, good to see you, man. And Mary, oh my goodness, this is great. Some quick tips for you, 3 tips for you for posturing yourself in a place of hope. So if you're in the midst of a difficult situation right now, I just want to throw these at you. Hopefully they help you. The first one might sound super simple and super cheesy, but it's legitimate. Write down what you're hopeful about. And what's that, buddy?
Big or small.
For you?
Yeah.
I would do a big one. Yeah, always go big. Making coffee. And now I have family on. My sister Natalie, David Seaman, good to see you. You made it. I love it. And Mary Rosenberger, man, it's great to see your name pop up here. All right, so 3 keys while an espresso machine is going. Number 1, write down what you're hopeful about. I'm going to read you something real quick. This is a Harvard business study, and I love this. Yes, always go big. A Harvard business study found that 3% of graduates from their MBA who had their goals written down ended up earning 10 times as much as the other 97% put together after just 10 years after graduation. I'm going to put a link to this article in the comments below when we're done with the broadcast, but this is so big to me. Last year, when I was in a really, really dark place, one of the things that Jennifer and I started to do, oh, hey, nephews glued to the screen. I love you guys. How are you? Hey, my nephews. I love you. Logan, Holden, and Evan. I hope you guys are great. Here's Judah. Here's your cousin saying hi too.
Hi.
All right, that was a little family commercial there. When Jennifer and I were in a really dark place, one of the things we started to do was to dream about the things we wanted to see, the places we wanted to go, and the people we wanted to spend time with. And that is very powerful. I'll say it too, that we actually would cut out pictures of places we wanted to go or things we wanted to get. And it might sound extremely materialistic to some of you. However, I hate to break it to you, but we are material people. And we live in a material world. And I'm glad they like the shout out. That's so fun. And so it's not wrong to be motivated by natural things. To say otherwise is to really reject our humanity, and I don't think that's fair either to us as a creation or the one who created us. So it's okay to cut those things out, to make lists, to hang things up in your bathroom or your bedroom and say, hey, this place I want to go visit. This is the car I would like to purchase one day. These are the people I want to spend time with. And seeing those things over and over again actually have a way of pointing us toward hope and away from desperation. The second thing I want to throw at you is this, that hope thrives on simplicity. Hope thrives on simplicity. This was a huge lesson that I have been learning. I'll say I've learned, but I'm still in the process of learning. A mentor once told me that you don't own stuff. Stuff owns you. You don't own stuff, but stuff owns you. And one of the things that helps motivate us is the limiting the amount of distractions in our world. Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate that. I feel like you've spoken to me about that too, by the way. It's very, very Hebrew-esque in thought. Part of the last year and a half of my life has actually been gutting things. We just gutted our basement, and my oldest son was such a help, paid him some hourly monies to go down and just gut our basement and get stuff out. We gutted our barn and are going to be putting an addition on inside of there, building it out a little bit. We actually got rid of our sailboat. As much as I love sailing, I realized that it was a distraction. And that there might be another boat someday in the future. However, at this point in my life, it was really essential that we begin to get rid of and liquidate and throw out a lot of the clutter, which interestingly, I think represents the clutter sometimes we have in our minds. And sometimes the things that we are going through internally are reflected in the environment that we build around ourselves. If your environment is cluttered, there's a very good chance emotionally and mentally that you are feeling and are cluttered. And therefore, I would propose to you some helps, which are take the time to declutter. Take the time to throw out. Take the time to purge. Those memories will always be with you. Take pictures of stuff if you need to. However, the material stuff is actually complicating your ability to pursue hope. So that's number two. The third thing is this, that don't force hope to pay your bills. Don't force hope to pay your bills. That's wisdom's job. Wisdom is what pays the bills. Wisdom is what moves us forward in terms of the material, essential elements of life. Good morning, Greg. Thanks for watching. However, when we try to make hope pay our bills, what we often do is prematurely put pressure on that thing that we love to produce something it might not be able to do. And we're going to talk more about this next week because I think this is a huge subject and something that a lot of people ask me about. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean that that something can pay the bills for you. It might, but often we become discouraged and almost disenfranchised, I would say, because we're expecting the thing we hope for to take care of all these other needs in our lives, when really it's wisdom's job, which is how we respond to the world, where we put our time, where we invest our energies. Those things that are wise end up supporting us in terms of our need. But the hope element has to do with who we would like to be later in the future. So anyway, I'll say one more quick example, that our foundation, that's wise, that's wisdom. We might want to live in a beautiful home, and that could come one day. However, what we build the home on is a foundation. Do you want to say hi, Levi? Come here. This is Levi, who's just getting up, quarantine time. How old are you?
8.
Yeah. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
And what are your hobbies? What do you like to do for fun?
I don't know.
Really? You don't know?
Yeah. Right?
Right?
Play video games.
That's good. All right. Good morning, Angela. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. You got some coffee too, Judah? It really is coffee with Christopher. All right. Thank you, Mo. Takes one to know one, my man. All right. So let's get into this coffee real quick. By the way, I am drinking. This is the second appearance that Frank has made this morning. Yeah. All right. So this is our shout out real quick to Building 3 Coffee. I think it's probably reversed on the camera. Yes. Yes, Mary. My son is drinking coffee. Like father, like son. And by the way, I think that I just want to say, thanks, Andrew. You're awesome. I want to say that I feel like quarantine outfits are the mullet of the clothing industry. All right. So in other words, like it's like, you know, business in the front, party in the back. I think that for those of us who are present in social media, we dress like a mullet, which is your business on the top and party or PJs on the bottom. And so I can't tell you how often it was like we're walking around in really cozy pants, but have to have some sort of like decent shirt on the top. So I think that's pretty funny. All right, there's the Nespresso machine again. Shout out to Nespresso, by the way. Okay, so here is Building 3 Coffee. Very, very cool company. These guys are out of Colorado Springs, Colorado, and it's run by Sean Buckles and his wife Jenna Buckles. They're amazing people. Sean is a friend of mine, former Spec Ops, United States Army, Halo instructor. This dude is intense and amazing. When he stepped out of the Army, he stepped into civilian life to do something for his community. And so they source this coffee, like this says Guatemala, because they actually go to Guatemala and work with the families and the farmers for fair trade. And so not only is it an award-winning coffee in and itself, but they do amazing things in the city of Colorado. They help people get off the streets and find jobs, find work. I just couldn't be prouder to have them be our sponsor today. So yes, I'm drinking the Piedra Partida from Guatemala, and it's a washed bean. The impressions, I love this, are golden raisin, brown sugar, and crispin apples. I would love to tell you that I can smell and taste all that. That's my wife's department. So I don't, but I just know it tastes really good and I love it. So Building 3 Coffee, here's to you guys. Love you very much. Nathan, I am glad you are in your PJs too. That makes me feel a whole lot better. All right, we're gonna get into a few questions for you creatives out there, and then we'll close out the session this morning, the coffee date, if you will. So jumping up to Adam's question earlier, he said something really, really cool. What? Oh, that was a nice dab there. I like that, Levi. He asked me how I come up with species and species names, and he wasn't really clear. I don't know if you're still on, man, but I'll try to touch both real quick. Recon Grand, man, I like that. I don't know what that means, but that is really, really cool. For me, species themselves as a whole are inspired by things I've seen in pop culture. So like take this little guy, for example. So he's an existing piece of art, if you will. And I don't think we ever really come up with something new. I love there's this scripture in the Bible that says that there's nothing new under the sun. We're just standing on the shoulders of great people who've gone before us. And therefore, I think what we create tends to be amalgamations of stuff. Hey, Adam. Hey, see if you can clarify. I'm gonna hit both questions for you, which are both species creation and name creation. And my grooming routine. We'll get into that later. A lot of gray. That's what we're going for right now. See, they leave little comments right there? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can read those comments. So species creation is an amalgamation of things that have inspired me. So, for instance, when I think of what they look like, I'm seeing Romulans from Star Trek. I am seeing Star Wars species. I'm seeing stuff from any of the sci-fi movies I've ever encountered. And those kind of all form and inform what I'm creating. So I think it's just taking and being a good mental note taker on species. I also, in Evernote, I have a whole file. I'm going to actually show you something kind of cool. There are, what do you got? You got Frank the Monkey. So I'm going to show you something interesting.
Frank the Super Monkey.
Nice. Okay. So in Evernote, when I'm watching a film or TV or anything, I actually keep notes on things that I really liked aesthetically, or just visually. I saw something I thought was amazing. So for instance, here is Picard, which I've been going through. Great series if you're a Trekkie. And in Picard, I just noticed that there were all these really cool moments where I wanted to capture them because they inspired me, whether they were scenes or people or situations that were going on. A lot of their computer graphics are really cool. There's some cool lines that he was saying early on that I think were powerful. And so anything that inspires me, I try to be very, very conscious of taking good notes. as a creative and as a creator, hey, nice cup of coffee there, dude. Nothing is ever wasted. And if you can take a note in the moment, it saves your brain space from having to remember to take that note later on. It's one of the reasons that I text back right away. It's because I can't afford to let that thing linger in my mind and kind of fester for a while. It takes up too much space. I need to be done with it. And so anytime I have an idea or I see something, I pull my phone out, take a picture, put it in Evernote, and move on. And those things become inspiration to inform me later on. Hey, I'm teaching at Purdue University right now, trying to get back to drum, to be back with my New York people. I love it. That is so cool. And Nathan, you love Picard. That doesn't surprise me, my friend. I love it. Simeon Frémont, en Suisse. Je suis enchanté. C'est incroyable. It's great to see you, my friend. I love you. So anyway, being faithful to categorize information, archive it, categorize it, is a great way to grow later on in your creative process. The second thing that I do with naming conventions, honestly, I use anything I can to come up with fun names. There are name generators you can use online, and you can input data and it will generate random names for you according to that. Believe it or not, that is where I got the name for one of my main protagonists, named Moldark in the current Runes of the Galaxy series. And so name generators can be used, but 95% of the time I am coming up with names on my own, on the fly, and they have to, number one, fit the universe that I'm building in. And more importantly, number two, and I'll say this was probably the first one, is readers have to be able to pronounce them. You can't get slowed down, and I've seen this a lot with new writers, is they will have a specific name, and it just is too crazy. It's too hard to write, and there's just no way that, you can't turn those on because it might hurt the phone. There's just no way that you can afford to be so creative that you end up knocking the reader out of the universe you've tried to make. And I think that's a really, really important step for anybody who's breaking into any art form, is don't distract your reader just because you feel like being so creative. You are ultimately there to serve them and to immerse them in the world that you're in. A lot of people will say, yeah, but what about J.R. Tolkien? J.R. Tolkien was a master, and he was writing in a different time for a different people who were used to a different diet. It's not to say you can't be that, but trying to find that audience, that specific audience, is very, very challenging. And I would not recommend it if you are trying to make a living as an artist right now. If it's something you're doing just for yourself, then great, write for yourself. But don't try to do that for a specific audience at this point in your career. So the other thing I wanted to get into, so hopefully that helps answer your question, Adam, and a great question, by the way. The thing I wanted to, actually, let's talk about Bimby, Gary. You bring up a really cool point. Abimbala is a character in the Ruins of the Galaxy series who is an amalgamation of Roadblock from G.I. Joe, and he's a warlord in the dregs of Uraji. And you can read about him. R.C. Braid just did an incredible job narrating him and personifying his personality, kind of a Ugandan warlord. So think Wakanda, which I really, really like. And again, Abimbala is kind of fun to say, but it actually is a real name in African tradition, and therefore has a little bit of a context, so a reader isn't going to stop right away. When they come across that name, we even shortened it and made it Bimby, which is what Magnus calls him. So Magnus doesn't even want to say Abimbala. He wants to just say, hey, Bimby, which is a little bit of a jest as well. So there are ways that you can make complex things a little more palatable for your audience, and I would suggest looking for ways to do that. Anyway, thanks you guys, and Gary, I appreciate the comment there. All right, so one more writing tip, and this goes into not just writing creativity, but this can get into film. This gets into dance. It gets into visual arts. It can even get into, honestly, things outside of the creative scope, which are just how do you be an influential person in your job? How do you learn and grow in your aptitudes and skills? And so this is the principle that I call breaking down the masters, or break down the masters. It's okay. It's all right. He can watch if he wants to. I'm going to speak as a writer, because this is something that I've done in writing. I've also done this a lot in music, and I have done this even in counseling people. I would say that this is really essential in terms of how we teach young people as well. But this idea of breaking down the masters means you take an existing work, an existing body of work, but really try to take a specific work. And again, in writing, I'm going to say I would take Robert Ludlum's novels. And instead of just reading them and consuming them as information and entertainment, which certainly has this place, and it's something that I do in other realms, but when I'm in a place of wanting to grow in my profession, I would take Robert Ludlum's novels and I would actually make notes. If it was a physical book, in the book, I'd also keep a pad of paper next to me, or Moleskine, or Evernote on my computer, and I would make comments on what was the chapter about. We got some stirring going on. Why don't you do the stirring over on that counter? It will be a little less noisy, okay? What was the chapter about? What was it trying to accomplish? How did it move the story forward? And I would do that for every single chapter until I was done with the book. And when I was done, I would look back and notice patterns that were at work. And if I did this over 2 or 3 or 4 Robert Ludlum novels, I would find out that this pattern was something he followed, and he really was one of the grandfathers of modern suspense writing. He's somebody that is worth studying. But this can be done in any creative venture. This can be done in music, where you take a song. I know Brian Moore is watching. Yay! Incredible producer and recording engineer. If you take a song and you begin to break out the elements of that song, what makes it tick? Why is it working? I know it makes me want to move, and I know I love the lyrics, but how do I actually go through and break this thing down? Hey, Brian, thanks for joining us. It was great to have you. And in the hopes of noticing patterns, repeated rhythms, elements that are there on purpose, and that's what we're looking for. What was the intent of the author, the authorial intent? Again, this can be done not just in music, but this can be done in your profession. How does my boss manage 200 people and do it so well? I'm going to break down the masters. How do I parent better? I love this mom and dad. What are they doing that I am not doing, and how do I grow in that? And so I would challenge you, whatever you are trying to get better at, and I say this most especially to young writers, is, again, this is not glamorous, this is not sexy, this requires some hard work, is take content that you already know and love, and now begin to look at it with a critical eye. Just make notes. How did it make you feel? What were you anticipating? How did the chapter leave off? Where did the next chapter begin? All these things are patterns that you can apply to yourself and apply to your own talent sets. And I think it's really powerful. So, getting some comments from the peanut gallery here. Find all the typos, it's versus its. Yeah, thanks, Nathan. I think you've found 1,000 of those so far in our relationship, and I'm very grateful for that. Gary, yes, cadence is very important in writing. I think cadence actually in any art form is very important. It lets the work breathe. In fact, one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given, and I'll close out the broadcast with this, was from Randy Cutlip, who is a former keyboard player for Three Dog Night. And he once told me, Christopher, the greatest power of music is not what you're playing, but it's the holes that you leave in the music for the spirit to say something else. And I love that piece of advice. So often it's learning how to create space, this breathability in the art. Even in writing, it's not just music, but in writing, don't explain everything for your audience. Let their brain be in the midst of contributing and co-creating with you in your universe. It's really, really essential, and it lets the reader know, or the consumer, the listener, whoever it is, know that they have a part to play in this process, and you're not trying to do all the heavy lifting for them. You want to incorporate them and their imagination into the world you're creating. David, thank you for those very kind words. It might be a little of my ADD that allows me to focus on so many things at once. There I am. That's right. You can watch me live. Thanks, Levi. Troy King, less is more. Yes, I think that is a beautiful adage, along with keep it simple, stupid, right? So thanks, Nathan, for saying you're proud of me. I appreciate that. I am always growing as a writer. So anyway, everybody, thanks for watching this morning. It's been great to have you. I hope that you enjoyed the broadcast and all the things we discussed today. Go out and buy some Building 3 coffee. And if you are not a member of my email lists to be in my reader groups, you can find those at christopherhopper.com for nonfiction and self-help and development. And you can find fiction at ruinsofthegalaxy.com. Love to have you on those mailing lists and stay in touch that way. So that's it. We'll do this again next Wednesday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to talk about discovering your superpower. So that's it. Have a great day, and hope that you are well wherever you are. And with that, nice little banjo strum, we'll say farewell.